Good morning.
Good morning.
This is lesson number 3. Today is September the 17th, the year of 2023. The topic of today's lesson is the fall of Jericho. Lesson text comes from Joshua the 6th chapter, 2nd to the 4th verse. Then we jump down to the 12th to the 20th verse. The time is 1405 BC. Place is Jericho. The golden text, it reads, "It came to pass at the 7th time, when the priests blew with the trumpets, Joshua said unto the people, Shout, for the Lord hath given you the city." That's Joshua the 6th chapter, 16th verse. Today's aim, the facts is to show how God helped Joshua and his people overcome Jericho by trusting in him. The principle is to show that God is a victorious God who works on the side of those who trust him. And the application is to teach that when we trust God, he will make us victorious. The object of this is trust. We must trust God.
Amen.
Regardless of whatever we may think things are, how things may seem, should still trust God. Should trust that God will see us through. I know many times we look at situations as being bad and we try to fix it ourselves. But you got to have trust in God.
Amen.
You know, you alone can't do anything, but through God all things are possible.
Amen.
Joshua. This book is very unique. This book of Joshua, it teaches us about obedience.
Amen.
The whole book of Joshua talks about obedience, being obedient. And if you notice while reading through this book, when people wasn't obedient, things happened.
Amen.
Bad things happened. You know, when they wasn't obedient and they didn't do what God asked them to do, God punished them.
Amen.
You know, as for just like us, you know,
Amen.
us being raised, when mama and daddy say do and you decide not to do,
Yep.
things happen. You
That's
know,
right.
things can happen for the good or for the bad, you know, but things will happen.
Amen.
You know, whenever you decide to do otherwise than what people tell you to do, then consequences. And in this lesson here, we see a lot of consequences that may happen if you don't. We are still talking about Jericho. And like last week, I kind of touched on it a little bit in the book of Jericho. Well, in the book of Joshua, we was talking about Jericho, and they still haven't overtaken Jericho yet. But I said, wait until chapter 6, and look, we in chapter 6. You know, so no, I did not look ahead into the next week's lesson to see if we was going to chapter 6. So I don't know if I helped you out or not, but I've already touched bases on what happened in chapter 6.
Amen.
But what we have not covered is what happened in chapter 3, 4, and 5. You know, we've discussed chapter 1, and from chapter 1 we jumped to chapter 11. And we went back to chapter 2. And we didn't really touch on what happened in between times. You know, but there's things that happened before they made it to Jericho.
Yeah.
You wasn't just going to walk into Jericho without passing something else. You know, there was another obstacle that stood in their way. You know, just like life itself, no matter what it is you're trying to do, there's always something that's going to be standing in your way.
Yeah.
And it's going to stay there until you put God in the mix. And that's the most important thing about being a Christian. Making sure that God stay in the mix. And when I say in the mix, I mean slap, jam, right in the middle of everything. You need God stuck right in the middle of everything.
Amen.
If you want to succeed, if you want to be victorious, God has to be in the middle. And I'm stressing in the middle for a certain reason. You know, because in this lesson, you see that God is in the middle of everything.
That's right.
Jericho. I don't want us to go through this lesson and think about Jericho as just being a city.
That's right.
You know, I want you to look around at your own lives. And I want you to understand that we all have Jericho around us.
Amen.
You know, we are all stuck into Jericho. There's a wall that has to be torn down for us all to succeed.
Amen.
You know, and until you've done what God asked you to do, that wall will forever stand.
Right.
And if you want to move forward into life, you have to break that wall. You have to tear that wall down. And see, I remember this book so well and so clear. And matter of fact, yesterday was my father's birthday, and that was his trial sermon. You know, he read into the book of Joshua, the 6th chapter, when the walls came tumbling down, and you know, he looked over at his mama and he said, "Mama, if there's a wall between you and God, I want you to tear it down." You know, so this book, you know, it really touches me in some ways because of where it came from.
Yeah.
You know, I learned this book, and this book stuck with me for years. You know, because of it being his trial sermon, his first sermon that he ever spoke, you know. So we're going to go ahead and get into this. I just want you to pay close attention to, this is not a city. This is us. This is real life.
That's right.
So it says here, "And the Lord said unto Joshua, See, I have given into thine hand Jericho, and the king thereof, and the mighty men of valor." So, like I said before, there was chapter 3, 4, and 5. And we have started at the beginning of this chapter. So you have to know where things came from. And pay attention to where things came from. Because in life, and me and Deep was talking about it earlier, but in life, you want to understand that where you came from is very important. And see, if they hadn't have remembered where they came from, the things that they went through, they wouldn't have understood. You know, because this started with Moses. All of this started with Moses. And if anybody can remember what happened when Moses was bringing them from out of Egypt, you know, they was followed. You know, they was going to be killed. You know, the Pharaoh had them all followed. Even after he said, "Yes, I will let them go,"
Yeah.
the Pharaoh decided to change his mind and get behind them to kill them. But they ran to the Red Sea, and God said, "Split it." Y'all got to remember that.
That's right.
Because I want you to understand that these people that we're talking about here is not the same ones that came from Egypt. See, the ones that we're talking about now, there has been 40 years past. You know, so there has been babies being born along the way. And these are those that haven't crossed that path. But if they had not have known where they came from, when he split Jordan, they wouldn't have understood what was going on. So they had to know where it came from. Now, along these lines, there has been things that happened because when Moses was in charge, Moses was told to circumcise all firstborn men.
Right.
Well, circumcise all the little boys. That's what Moses was told to do. All men that were not circumcised were to be circumcised. Now, all of this time went past. Now, those that were circumcised, they're dead and gone. Now you got the new generation that came up. Now Joshua is faced with the same task. He was told to make a straight blade and circumcise all the men that have not been. So the splitting of Jordan, when he split that Jordan, that was showing them what happened at the Red Sea. You know, life is so amazing. Everything that you go through now, if you actually put what happened to you from the past, and you can't leave anything out. If you have loved ones or children coming up, or even cousins that is looking at you, you have to let them know where you came from. You can't keep that to yourself. If you want them to succeed in life, they have to understand the reason why you say don't. The reason why you say go. If you don't let them know these things, then when you're saying, hey, I don't want you to do that, the first thing that they will say is, why? That don't make sense. And the reason they will say that is because they don't understand what you're talking about. You know, and not to be picking at anybody in particular. I know I'm talking because I got kids in school, but I'm not saying that I'm talking about my own kids. But what I'm saying is when you have children these days saying school don't make sense. School is ridiculous. Why do we have to go? It don't make sense to me. The teachers don't know what they're talking about. But see, the thing about that is, if they knew where it came from, when way back in the day people died just to get there.
Yep.
You had the in-house servants that used to eavesdrop just to hear the information that they said inside so that they can go back out on the outside and share that information with them.
Yep.
Then you had those that would sit outside the school buildings that they wasn't allowed to go into, hoping they wouldn't get caught, beaten, or killed, so that they can relay that information back because they wanted to have the same knowledge that everybody else did. And see, they were separated from that. They couldn't have these things. So now when you hear kids saying, school don't make sense, why do I have to be there? You know, it kind of make certain people feel some kind of way. You know, especially when they think about what they went through. So with these people here, if they was not accepting what went on crossing Jordan, some people would have felt some kind of way. You know, and I think it would have been a repeat of what happened to Moses when he came down the mountain and he slayed a lot, not understanding that Moses was stepping on God's toes. Moses ran down and said, I got this, and I'm going to kill everybody that went against what you said. These people had to be told what went on because they were the new offsprings. So if you don't let the new offsprings know what's going on, then the things that is being put in place, they're going to take it for granted. Like I said before, we all have our own Jericho.
Amen.
There is something in our lives that we just got to get rid of if we want to succeed.
Right.
It says, and ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days. And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns. And the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times. And the priests shall blow with the trumpets. So the book of Joshua speaks of being obedient.
That's it.
Doing as you're told and not what you want. See, there was a lot of things that they could have been doing. You know, sound ridiculous. All they want them to do is walk around the city. Just walk. When in a lot of their minds, they could have been saying, you know, all we really have to do is either climb the wall or knock the door down. But all God said do was walk around the wall. And not only walk. See, today, a lot of us would have failed this task because most of us can't keep our mouths closed. God said walk and hush.
That's right.
Speak nothing. All I want you to do is walk. The only noise that needed to be heard was your feet walking and the trumpet sounding. Nothing else. But see, many of us today, we'd have been walking, man, I don't know why we walking around this thing like this for. We can be doing something else. All we got to do is, see, we'd have been done. Because that's how the new generation thinks. New generation is not like the old generation.
Go away.
See, because if you think back, now I'm gonna take it back to my parents' parents. And if you go back to your parents' parents, or your parents, however far back you want to go. And the farther you go back, the more different you will see things have been. So if you take it way back, a child would be laid up in bed at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the first thing that will wake them up is a belt to their behind. Because there's something they're supposed to be doing instead of laying in that bed. There was no questions asked because they already know what they should be doing. Now, from that next generation that came on, the parent will walk in the room and say, hey, you need to get up because you got something you got to do. They'll leave. They come back, the next sound will be a belt to their behind. Right. And then that next generation that came out, the parents will walk in and say, you need to get up because you got something to do. And then they'll leave. Then they'll come back and say, hey, get up because there's something you need to do. And then the next sound would have been a belt. Now this new generation, you'll either talk all day or you'll be fighting. Because soon as you lay a hand on the new generation, they're going to look at you like you've done something you ain't had no business doing. Yeah. And I don't know about y'all, but the first time I get something like that, it's going to be a fight. But see, that's how things has evolved and changed, only because the more the generation has changed, the more we feel like this don't make sense. I didn't like it when I was being born and I was being raised. I didn't like it then. Why am I going to put it through with my children? I'm not going to put that on them because I didn't like it when I was going through it because you didn't understand why. See, but if you understand why certain things are being done, you can carry out life the way it's supposed to be. Now, it says the priests. The priest was there. The priest carried the ark. And it skipped. Verse 4 down to verse 12. It skipped a lot of valuable information. Well, see, how it went was there were armies out front, armies in the rear. And slap in the middle, the ark carried by 4 priests, followed by 4 priests blowing the ram's horns. So now the 4 priests carrying this ark, like I said, I don't want y'all to look at this as being a city. This is all you. You think about it. Everybody can bring God inside. Everybody can't carry the word, but everybody can bring God in them lives. Everybody can have God with them. Everybody can't carry the word. So when I say that, me and my brother was talking the other day, and I said there's certain things about being a minister, and the truth about that is we're all ministers. We can all tell each other about God. Amen. But what we all can't do is be.
That's it. That's it.
We can't all be up in this pulpit.
That's it.
Because there's a selected few that God allows to carry the word.
That's right.
But we all can share the word.
Oh, yeah.
We all can speak the goodness of God. But now, soon as you be disobedient and start doing things that God did not instruct you to do, that's when God has to have the last say. It says, and Joshua rose early, and Joshua got up early. See, this is how they reacted when it came to God. Whenever God says, hey, first thing tomorrow, I need you to go and do this. First thing, before the sun even rose, Joshua got up because he was excited to do what God asked him to do. First thing in the morning back then is before the rooster crows. Before the sun even shines across the sky. They jump up just to do what God say do. Now here it is. We have services at 10, 11 o'clock. Still don't want to get here. And there was one thing that I had thought about, but I had to rescind my action. Because the way I was thinking was not the right thought. I was thinking, I said, I go live because I want everybody to hear the Sunday school and the services, but all I'm doing is crippling a lot of people. Well, God spoke to me and God says, you're not crippling anybody. Mm-hmm. He says you're putting the word out there because there are some that really can't get here.
That's right.
And then there are some that's trying to have a reason why they should go. Mm-hmm. So if I was to stop doing what I'm doing, then those that I could have been reaching, I would no longer reach.
That's right.
Because some people, this is the first time that they have ever heard messages from God. Some has always wanted and couldn't. So for me to stop doing what I'm doing, I stopped doing what God asked me to do.
Yeah.
So Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord, the priests only. Nobody else, because that's what they was instructed to do. God had instructed for the priest only to carry the ark. Now, why was they carrying the ark everywhere they went? They was at war. But this whole time, every time they moved, the ark was right there with. Why? Can anybody explain that to me? Why?
Represents the presence of God.
There it goes. Represents the presence of God. That's just letting you know that no matter what it is you have to do, put God in the mix. As long as God is in the mix of everything that you're doing, you're going to always come out on top.
If one or two together in my name, I'm in the midst.
But when you decide to do without bringing God, that's when you're going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to always fail if you decide to move without God. And 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord went on continually and blew with the trumpets, and the armed men went before them. But the reward came after the ark of the Lord, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. And see, the thing was, as they were walking around Jericho. Now, when you think of Jericho as being a city, I don't want you to look at Jericho as being just huge. Jericho wasn't that large. Jericho was about 7 acres, in diameter. That's all. It was just about 7 acres. So you can walk around 7 acres. So they walked around Jericho. And I haven't gotten there yet, but I need you to pay attention to the fact that the wall fell. And when they say the walls fell, I need you to pay attention to the fact that Rahab, her house, was built into one of the walls. Mm-hmm. So if the walls fail, somebody has got to pay close attention to why hers didn't. The whole wall of Jericho fell. Now, I'm only 5'11", and that wall was wider than I am tall. That's how thick that wall was. It was just that thick. So you're not just going to go in there and beat it down. It was going to take something. And see, for the only thing for it to have taken for that wall to fall was for them to do as God said and just walk. See, there's a significance now. See, all they did was walk. God says, I want you to walk. And I don't want you to speak. And I want the horns to blow 6 days. And each day, I want you to walk. The first day, walk around once. The second day, walk around once. They did that for 6 days. They walked around one time each for 6 days. God gave specific instructions. He said, on that 7th day, I want you to walk around 7 times. Why 7? 7 is completion. 7 is completion. So Now, the whole time walking around, everybody say, well, why are we just walking? Ain't nothing happening. Well, the thing is, something is happening. See, God is working the whole time. The ark is God. God is speaking. God said, hey, you better get ready. Better get ready because I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. God is talking the whole time. 6 days, God is talking, weakening the devil. Telling the devil, you know what? You can run, but you cannot hide. I got you. And you'll find out on day 7, I'm coming in. And God kept on talking, kept on talking. And the only thing they had to do was walk. Just walk. Just do as I say. Just walk. I got you. You ain't got to fight. I got you. God says I'm going to make it just that simple for you. The only thing you have to do is what I say. That's how it is for us. That's all we have to do is what he say. Many people think they got to be rich, have to have a lot of money. They have to have the biggest house and the biggest car. The only thing you have to do is do what God say. When you do what God say, you ain't got to worry about a thing. Bills due, God's got it. Car note due, God's got it. You don't have to worry about nothing as long as you put God in the mix of your life. No matter what your life has, put God in the middle. And I keep jumping. I keep jumping. But what we have to stop doing is thinking about our past. We can't live and move forward from our past. Yeah, I'm ahead of myself because that's farther down. I wasn't going to talk about that until we got farther down into the lesson. But our past, I just want y'all to have this in mind when I get to this point. Got to have it in mind. So our past is what holds a lot of us back. We always think about, well, I used to be this, so what is people going to think when I come up in there and I'm still there and they're going to look at me for what I used to be? Well, that's what you used to be.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. That's it.
If you decide to live your life only based on what you used to be and not who you've become, you can never move forward. They used to say, not used to say, they still say it. All you need is the faith the size of a mustard seed, which is true. That's all you need is a faith the size of a mustard seed. But let me tell you the truth about having the faith the size of a mustard seed. If 30 years later all you still got is that same faith the size of a mustard seed, where was your growth?
Nowhere.
After you've planted that mustard seed, if it don't grow, you haven't done anything.
That's it.
So just by having that little bit of faith was just a start. You're not going to find any farmer that go out in his field, drop a seed in the ground, and walk away. He haven't done anything. Can't expect for anything to happen. Anything that happens in your life, it happens because you made it happen. God puts you on the right path, but then it's up to you to do something. Faith without works is dead. You have to do something. God is going to tell you what he got for you. What you going to do for it? And the second day, they compassed the city once and returned into the camp. So they did 6 days. And it came to pass on the 7th day that they rose early about the dawning of the day and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they compassed the city 7 times. And it came to pass at the 7th time when the priests blew with the trumpets, Joshua said unto the people, shout, for the Lord hath given you the city. What did they have to do to get into the city? All they had to do was walk around the city and be obedient.
That's it.
If you came up in life and the whole time you've said, I don't know why I can't have everybody else got. What did you do for it? Everybody else got this, why I can't have that? What did you do for it? You know, obedience is the key to everything. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell y'all a big story because I know what type of child I was growing up. I know I wasn't the best of the best. I know I wasn't way up here and no child out tops my son. I know I wasn't there because I was that son that my mother would probably say, I don't put nothing past him.
Yeah.
Y'all ain't got to laugh that hard. But the thing is, if I didn't get anything that I wanted, there wasn't but two reasons. One reason would be mom and daddy just couldn't afford it. And the other reason was I didn't do nothing for it. If I did get it, it was because I deserved it. I got what mama and daddy felt like I should have based on the type of child that I was. So if I didn't get it, I most likely probably would have cried. But it was my own fault. Why didn't you get it? Because of something that you either did that you shouldn't have been doing or didn't do that you should have done. Being disobedient was not an option coming up. Just as being disobedient is not an option when it comes to being a Christian. If either of these men or women wanted anything from God, they had to do exactly what God asked them to do. If they cut any corners at all, they wasn't going to get it. Because God says do it all. You can't miss one. You have to do everything that he asks if you want to get what he has for you. God said go, you got to go out. These things that God was asking these people to do, if he'd asked us to do these things, we'd have failed. Walk around the city 7 times. Why? It's hot. And you want me to walk. I'm trying to take this city. So what I'm thinking of is running in, killing everybody, and taking over. Pay attention to this being Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
This being the first city that they overtook. Keep it in mind. It says here, and the city shall be accursed, even it, and all that are therein, to the Lord. Only Rahab, the harlot, shall live. She and all that are with her in the house, because she hid the messengers that we sent. Now, like I said, there's a lot that's not in here.
Mm-hmm.
But keep in mind that this was the first city that they took. Okay, so if you keep in mind that this is the first city that they took, and you think about what happened once they get in, their orders were to go in, kill everything. Men, women, children, animals, kill them all. Just destroy them. All the gold, the silver, the iron. He says, take nothing for yourself. If you take anything for yourself, this blood is on your head. You would be punished just as they are. Take nothing for yourself. All of the gold, all of the silver, all of the iron, all of the values, that go to God.
That's right.
What does that make you think of?
Yeah.
When it comes to your tithes,
Mm-hmm.
take off the top.
Mm-hmm.
See, from this city was giving back to God because it was off the top. God had already told them what they had. This city was their 10% off the top. And that he wanted back. Only thing they had to do was go in there, don't take nothing for themselves. If they'd have took it, they wasn't going to be able to use it because God was going to deal with them. Mm-hmm. Take nothing for themselves. Everything gets sent to God. And he says, spare Rahab, the harlot. Y'all know when I talk about Rahab, I get a little too excited, I think. I think I get a little bit too excited. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to try to tone it down a bit this Sunday. But it says, Rahab the harlot shall live, she and all that are with her in the house, because she hid the messengers that we sent. Now, notice how they speak of Rahab. They say Rahab the harlot. This is how they speak of Rahab. Rahab the harlot. Mm-hmm. This is her title. Because that's what people know her as. Rahab the harlot. Mm-hmm. Like I said, don't live your life based on your past. Because who Rahab was shows not who she became. Mm-hmm. Just because you've been a certain person back in the day, and you run across certain people today and they still want to look at you as if you're that same person. The only time that would hurt you is if you prove it to be true. Somebody call you something that you used to be. You know, as these men walked around this city and they kept their mouths closed, that's what you need to do. That's it. People say things about you, about who you used to be. If it's not true, keep your mouth closed.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Because the only time you need to open your mouth is when you're trying to defend something. Mm-hmm. So why are you speaking if it's not the truth? You're trying to prove something that you don't need to prove. God says you are no longer who you used to be. Yesterday, I was a grilling man. Guess what I'm not doing today? I ain't grilling nothing unless my stove go out. But I ain't grilling nothing today. So, who I was yesterday sure is not who I am today. Amen. So stop living your life based on who you used to be. Because soon as Rahab walked out of these gates, Rahab was no longer the harlot. Rahab was Rahab. Y'all understand that, right? Mm-hmm. Rahab was no longer a harlot. Mm-hmm. Anybody that would have walked up to Rahab and called her such, she wouldn't have paid them no mind. Because that's not who she was. Mm-hmm. Move on. It says, and ye in any wise keep yourselves from the accused, lest ye make yourselves accursed. When ye take of the accursed things, and make the camp of Israel a curse, and trouble it. But all the silver and gold, and vessels of brass and iron, are consecrated unto the Lord. They shall come into the treasury of the Lord. Don't take nothing for yourself. Everything in this city goes back to God, because God says take off the top. And this is the first city in the top of everything that he's decided to give us. So from the top, we give all that back to God. After this city, the only thing we have to do is keep obeying what God says do, and he's going to give us more things. Mm-hmm. See, when God blesses your life, like I said about the mustard seed, if you keep your blessing bottled inside, your blessings won't grow. I'm not saying that everything that God does for you, you're supposed to tell everybody. No, you're not supposed to tell everybody, because some people look for you to release your blessing so that they can take it. Mm-hmm. But you're supposed to let your light shine. What I mean by letting your light shine is if God is in you, people need to see that.
That's That's one.
The person that you are on Sundays, people need to see that 7 days a week.
7 days a week.
People don't need to see that Christian that you are on Sundays and then the devil you are 6 more days out of the week. They don't need you blessing God today and cursing them tomorrow. Because as I've said before, there's people out there that's actually following our lead. We don't even know it. People are watching us that we don't even know is watching us. So if you have somebody watching your every move and you can't see them, as soon as you make a mistake, they're going to feel like the type of person that you are, that's okay. So the mistakes that you made, you've made it twice, 3 times, 10 times, 100 times, depending on how many people saw it. And depending on how many people following you. That one mistake that you made turned into millions. Because you decided to be a Christian one day out of the week. Well, when it comes to God, God says 99 and a half ain't enough. That's not enough for God. See, like I said, don't look at Jericho as being a city. Jericho is your personal life.
That's right.
And see, just like this city had problems. There was a problem about this city that needed to be torn down so that Joshua can go through it. So there's a problem in y'all's lives that needs to be torn down. There's a problem in my life that needs to be torn down. So don't think I'm talking about anybody out there, because there's certain things in our lives that just need to be gone so that we can come out. See, if Rahab would have stayed behind these walls of Jericho, then Rahab would not have come out. And if Rahab would not have come out, brothers, let me tell you something. Boaz would not have existed. It would not have existed. And see, if anybody knows this lineage, it took everything that Rahab used to be to turn into who Rahab became, so that Rahab can join the lineage of David. If Rahab would never have joined the lineage of David, Jesus couldn't have come from David. So Rahab plays a very important part when it comes to our lives. So if you're going to still judge people based on who they used to be, you need to think about Rahab. See, the devil already knows our lives. The devil knows what God has planned for us. See, many of us run through problems before we get to our good things. Take it back to Peter. There was a storm on the water before Peter made it to shore. So the shore was where Peter was headed, where Peter was going to be safe, but Peter had to run through something before he made it to safety. All I'm saying is, our lives are full of destruction. Our lives are full of problems.
Amen.
It's full of hatred. It's full of harm. It's full of a whole lot of things, but these things are placed there to stop us from achieving what God has for us, put there by the devil. So if you allow the devil to take control of you, then you stop the blessings that God has for you.
That's right.
See, if Rahab would have allowed the devil to hold her back and keep these messengers and have these messengers being arrested, then Rahab would have still been known as the harlot after death, because she would have died. They would have said that harlot died there. Now see, when Rahab put that scarlet card on that post over her window, that was just like that blood that they put over the post.
Yeah.
When they passed by and they saw that, they're going to leave that alone. So that whole wall fell, even though her house was built on that portion of the wall. That's the only portion that didn't fall.
Yeah.
So they were able to walk in, because God says, what I'm going to need you to do is, after this wall fall and you've conquered the city, I need you to go into her home and take all the people that is up in there and bring them to safety. After this, Rahab chanted that she was an Israelite. Rahab enjoyed being with the Israelites. Rahab's life changed because she was an Israelite.
Right.
See, this wall that we have, let me just read this. It says here, so the people shouted when the priest blew with the trumpets. And it came to pass when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat. Remind you, I said that this was a great wall.
Mm-hmm.
This wall was 6 feet thick in width. Thickness alone was large. So when you're thinking about problems in your life, there is no problem that is too large for God. Whenever you put God in the midst of anything, there's no problem that is too big for him. God will take care of any problem that you may have. All you got to do is put him in the midst of the situation, and God's got it under control. I'm going to turn this over into the hands of the superintendent.